All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the world of a super common but surprisingly complex creature, the dog flea, or if you want to get scientific, Ctenocephalides canis. If you've got a dog, you've definitely seen it. That sudden stop, the frantic scratching, that little leg going a mile a minute. It's such a common thing, right? But what's actually causing it is way more complicated than you might think. That itch, that's really just the tip of the iceberg. So in this explainer, we're going to look past the scratch and really unpack the science behind this little pest. We're talking biology, its crazy life cycle, and all the hidden dangers you might not even know about. Okay, first things first, let's get a proper introduction to our culprit. Who is this tiny tormentor, really? So Ctenocephalides canis is what scientists call an obligate ectoparasite. Now, let's break down that fancy term. Ecto just means it lives on the outside of its host. Think of it as an external pest, not an internal one like a worm. An obligate, that means it has absolutely no choice. It has to feed on blood to survive and to have babies. This isn't just some insect that bites for fun. Its entire existence is built around being a tiny, highly specialized, wingless vampire. And when you look at its classification, you see this isn't just some simple bug. It's a complex animal, a metazoan, part of the arthropod phylum, which means it has a hard exoskeleton. But the really cool part is its order, Siphonoptera. Insects in this group are laterally compressed, meaning they're super, super thin. And why is that? It's the perfect body designed for slipping and sliding through a thick forest of fur. Okay, now get ready for a pretty wild twist. If your dog has fleas, you'd naturally assume it's the dog flea, right? Makes sense. Well, it turns out most of the time it's actually the cat flea, Ctenocephalides felis. No joke. The cat flea is the #1 flea found on both cats and dogs all over the world. The actual dog flea, Ctenocephalides canis, is way less common on our pets. You can actually tell them apart under a microscope just by looking at their head shape. The dog flea has a much rounder, more blunt-looking head. So, if it's not the most common flea on our pets, where in the world do we actually find it? Let's take a look at its global footprint. The dog flea is what we call cosmopolitan, which basically means it's found pretty much anywhere there are dogs or their wild relatives. But how common it is really depends on the region. And to see how it spreads around in our modern world, the Netherlands actually gives us a perfect case study. See, in the Netherlands, the stray dog population is almost zero, so the dog flea is mostly an imported pest. It literally hitches a ride into the country on rescue dogs that are brought in from places in southern and eastern Europe, like Spain or Greece, where Ctenocephalides canis is much more common. It's a fascinating example of how our compassion for animals and international pet travel can literally redraw the map for where parasites are found. Now, to really get a handle on the flea problem, you have to understand its life cycle. And here's the secret. Most of it is happening completely out of sight. The flea goes through 4 totally distinct stages. First, a female flea lays her eggs on your dog, but these eggs aren't sticky at all. They're designed to fall right off into your house. Your carpets, your sofa, your dog's bed, that becomes the nursery. Then, these eggs hatch into tiny larvae that munch on organic stuff, including something called flea dirt, which is basically the digested blood from adult fleas. Gross, I know. Then they spin a tough little cocoon and become a pupa, just waiting for the right signal, like the heat, vibrations, or carbon dioxide from your dog walking by, to burst out as a hungry adult ready to jump on. And this leads us to the single most important number in the entire flea world. Get this. Up to 95% of a flea infestation, all the eggs, the larvae, the pupae, is not on your pet. It's living in your home. This is the absolute key. It's why just treating your dog is almost never enough to fix the problem. You're only fighting about 5% of the enemy. So, a flea problem isn't just about making your dog uncomfortable and itchy. A single flea bite can spiral into some pretty serious health problems. Okay, the obvious problem is the pruritus. That's the technical term for intense itching. But for a lot of dogs, it gets much worse. They can develop something called flea allergy dermatitis, or FAD, which is a massive allergic reaction to proteins in the flea's saliva. And if you have a really bad infestation, especially on a puppy or a small dog, the blood loss can be so bad it actually causes anemia. And of course, all that nonstop scratching can break the skin and open the door for all kinds of nasty bacterial or yeast infections. But it doesn't stop there. Beyond the bite itself, the dog flea is basically a taxi service for a whole host of other nasty diseases. It's the main carrier for the common tapeworm, Dipylidium caninum. Here's how that works. A flea larva eats a tapeworm egg, the tapeworm grows inside the flea, and then your dog gets infected when it swallows that flea while grooming itself. It can also pass along bacteria like Bartonella and Rickettsia, which makes it a real public health issue, not just a pet problem.
Okay, so that's the problem. How do we diagnose it? And more importantly, how do we fight back?
Well, diagnosis can be pretty simple, or it can get really high-tech. A vet will usually start with a good old-fashioned flea comb. And you can do the paper test yourself. It's a classic. You comb out those little black specks from your dog's fur, put them on a wet paper towel, and if they smear out into a reddish-brown streak, congratulations, that's flea dirt. It's digested blood. For a definitive ID, labs can use a microscope to check that head shape we talked about, or even run a PCR test on the flea's DNA. And to check for allergies, they can use skin tests to confirm if a dog has FAD. Now, how we treat these infestations can differ depending on where you are. In places like the Netherlands, there's a really strong emphasis on getting a vet involved and using prescription-strength products. The whole strategy is about integrated management. You treat the pet with powerful medications, and you aggressively treat the environment to break that hidden life cycle of the 95%. Around the world, the approaches vary, but the main idea is always the same. You have to attack the problem on two fronts, the pet and the home. Just so you know, we're all about being transparent here. All of the information that we've put together in this explainer was compiled and synthesized using advanced search tools. This helps us bring you a really complete picture based on a ton of different scientific sources. And hey, if you're a science nerd like me and you want to dig even deeper into the research, we've got you covered. We've put together a full list of all the scientific papers and resources we used in the linked Notebook LM document. You can check our work and go right to the source. So there you have it. The next time you see a dog having a good scratch, you'll know just how much complex biology is going on behind the scenes. If you found this useful, do us a huge favor and subscribe for more deep dives. And we'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching.